Welcome, everybody. We will call this meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Can you hear me now? We're calling this meeting to order. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. United States of America. Nation, God, indivisible. Are there any changes to the consent agenda?
Yes, I have one. People that, hello. I'd like to change item number 3, the approval of the MS 22. Move it down in the agenda to after the number 6 action item to the end. I'd like to allow for some other discussion before the signing there.
Is there a second? 15 seconds, thank you. Any discussion on changing the order to having the signing of the approval of MS 22 the end of the meeting? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So moved.
All right. Thank you all for coming this evening. Several of you here, I noticed that you were just at the NHDI performance held in the Pratt, the Jaffrey Grade School, the entire Jaffrey Grade School. It was fantastic. Wonderful event for all kids, the staff, the community, an extremely inclusive event. Some of the slides I'm going to share in the very beginning, or if you've been following along through the last several months, you would recognize. I'm repeating information so that those who haven't seen things, are caught up to speed, and those who have maybe see things through a different lens or from a different perspective. And so some of this goes back to before the vote on March 11th. Just some examples of communication that had gone out as it relates to the school district, the community, and the next steps that we're talking about here tonight.
March 11th, Jaffrey and Rindge voters will define how the district will operate moving forward. The district will either continue its district-wide improvement efforts, or it will be required to make a $3 million cut that would result in an impact on resources available to the community's children. If Article 3 passes, the district will need to cut $3 million from its original proposed budget. There has been some confusion regarding what a $3 million cut means. Some posts on social media have claimed that it is only $1 million or perhaps a $2 million cut. This information is not true. To be clear, it means cutting $3 million worth of expenses. Since 75% of the school district's budget is personnel related, this cut would result in a significant staff reduction. This means the district would need to eliminate academic and/or extracurricular programs that are not required by law. Even after cutting athletics and other clubs, which are not required by law, approximately 25 positions would need to be removed. The district would likely lose its regular education 4-year-old preschool program, field trips, and summer programming. Elementary school class sizes would be increased, and course offerings for middle school and high school would be reduced. Other areas, including but not limited to professional development and facilities work, would also need to be removed. If Article 3 does not pass, the school district would operate under the default budget. The default budget is defined as last year's operating budget minus any one-time expenditures, plus any costs required by law. This budget would provide the district with the funds necessary to continue to operate its current programming. Regardless of how you choose to vote, I hope you find the time to go to either Ringe Memorial School or Conant Middle High School and vote in the way you believe will enhance the future of these communities.
So that's an example of the communication that we had sent out in a variety of different ways, explain the importance of what we are doing here. I do believe that, you know, the community went and voted what it felt was right. And that's a good thing that there were so many people who went out and voted. And hopefully as we move forward through the month, the rest of this year, into next year and so forth, that we can use this entire experience as a time to come together, to have better communication, to listen to one another, and to find constructive ways forward. Here was what our board chair presented last time. Just on February 5th, there was a deliberative session. And at that session, $3 million was removed from the original proposed budget. On March 11th, we know what took place at the polls. And then we had some work to do, which leads us here to tonight, needing to make sure that the MS-22 is submitted to the state. Our budget priorities have been and still remain: retain our staff so that we can continue to do the work that we have been doing over the past 8 years, continue our educational improvement initiatives, and all things to make sure that our learners thrive in their lives and community. And that's all learners. These were the reductions that were approved at the last board meeting, in line with the communication that occurred before the vote. Our district has gone from the arrow on the left to the arrow on the right. It is very safe to say that very few districts have been able to do that. This district, and I'm proud of all the staff who are here, the community members who have helped make this happen, our learners, we are an aligned system. A system, of course, if you change one piece of it, impacts another piece of the system. It is not so easy to just take one thing and say, we can fix it by removing something else. This is a sampling of what some of those arrows, when they're aligned, mean. This district has a shared vision, both on paper and in the hearts and minds of the individuals who work here. We have a district mission that we live by. We engage, empower, and inspire all learners to thrive in their lives and communities. Some of the cuts that we've had to discuss and have been proposed to be made and impact a lot of these. Certainly our district-wide athletics and activities that we've been focusing on to have as inclusive as possible to make sure that not only are we competitive and that we're growing those programs in the athletics, but we're also making certain that there's a sense of belonging for all of our learners and that everyone, as Dave Beauchamp, former special ed director here, used to say, everyone needs a claim to fame, whatever that might be, whether it be drama, whether it be baseball, whether it be tennis or Magic the Gathering or art, anything. Pre-K is in the names of 6 of these arrows. Universal 4-year-old pre-K, that took us like 5 to 6 years to get installed into this district. This district is one of the only districts in the entire state who has that. It is extremely difficult to implement and then get going, and it's a huge impact on a community. I don't need to go and talk about the research on the importance of that. Losing that is terrible. So we're here, and the community here, the educational community, wants to keep going, wants our momentum to keep on going, wants our growth to continue. Is there a way to keep the momentum going? Is there a way to improve the chance of the district retaining staff? Is there a way to keep critical programming for all children? One question that has been discussed and continues to need to be discussed, regardless of anything that goes on tonight, is can the school district use unanticipated revenue to fund items removed from the budget? The Department of Revenue Administration indicates that is not something that we can be doing if we have already had it on the MS-26, which is what the original budget would have been reported at. In a recent conversation with our district's attorney, he thinks otherwise. He believes that while there are some hoops to jump through, that the district can find a way to use unanticipated revenue, especially if the source of the revenue was not known at the time of the MS-26, which is a document that goes to the state that talks about budgets. In 2021, the voters voted to enable the Jaffrey Ringe Cooperative School District to retain up to 5% of its net assessment. Since then, the school board has chosen to retain the full amount each year. The school board used this fund once to enable the school district to purchase curriculum materials for the pre-K through grade 8 literacy initiative. The school board can use these funds however it sees fit, as long as it holds a public hearing prior to spending them. There is currently $1,157,757 in the fund balance retainage. Unfortunately, that money can only be used this school year. However, there is next year. In August of 2025, every August, after a summer of audits and of making sure that the books are all closed properly, the school board decides whether they're going to retain the entire 5%, if it exists, or something other than that. The school board anticipating that it would be able to retain most or all of the total possible retainage. And for next year, that total possible retainage is 1,158,242. Could determine in advance to hold a public forum in early August to expend those funds and how to do so. So while those funds technically aren't approved or carried over, and they may or may not exist at that point in time, our trends show that, especially because we have not tapped into those funds, that they are likely to be able to be there at that time. What is the risk? If the school board chose to hold the public hearing in August to expend funds, so if we were to actually make actions, let's say tonight, and I'm interested in actions that are going to be made sooner than later. A lot depends upon that. Staffing depends upon that. If the school board chose to hold the public hearing in August to expend these funds, the risk would be, what if the funds don't exist? Or in the amount that we anticipate. For example, if the board said, let's keep pre-K at full capacity, the district would commit to funding the staffing for that program. If there isn't enough money to cover that, the contracts have already been gone. They've already gone out. We made that commitment. It needs to be paid. There are other things that we could commit to and then pull back from if we need to that aren't of a legal nature. Risk is not always bad. It's good that there's actually something that can be done. Can the district absorb this risk? That's a question for the board to consider. Another thing that might, I'm just going to answer before it's asked, come up about risk is we have aging facilities. When you have aging facilities, things happen. Unexpected things happen. Roofs. We've had a lot of pipe issues throughout the course of years I've been here. There could be some expensive, very, very expensive emergency situations that arise that need to be dealt with quickly. So what I would suggest is that the voters this year approved money to go, if there's money remaining, and as of right now, it would look like that is going to be the case, that the $400,000 would go into the Maintenance Reserve Trust Fund, that rather than doing work this summer, we hold that in our reserve trust fund for a year, postpone the major work that we wanted to do with windows and the track until next summer, and hold that 650,000 roughly. Could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less at that point in time, for the purpose of emergencies, to allow for people to have a peace of mind to use the other funds. After working with Carrie this past week, we project that at the end, once all things are funded, at the end of this year, it would appear that we would have $111,000 roughly remaining. Now, if that is the case, then the existing fund balance retention also will continue to exist. If it goes into the negative, then some of that may not exist. If we do have 111,000, there are some other options that can be done to even help some other areas that we might not discuss tonight. For instance, next year's budget has $76,000 in reserved for paying retirement, sick day paybacks or payouts. And so with that in mind, rather than waiting till July 1 or after July 1, that could be actually paid back in June instead, which would free up those funds for the following fiscal year. There aren't many situations like that, but that is one of those situations. And that only is true if we can guarantee we have those funds. The last time we were low on funds was when we had a default year and that we had an issue with almost not being able to payroll that. But I don't think that we're going to have that issue at the end of this year. We started to freeze our spending earlier on than usual. This suggests that the school board will likely have the ability to retain the entire $1,158,242 in August of 2025. Other questions that voters would be interested in, perhaps. And I know we have people here with various reasons for being here. And it is important to note that when the community votes for a budget that is a lot lower in this case, and $3 million is significant, we do have to understand that New Hampshire has made it a difficult situation for funding schools. And taxes are real. And it matters that people in the community are taken care of. And so it is important that, again, as we move forward, we continue to try to work with one another to balance these things and also to work together to fight the real issues and the real reasons why situations like this arise. The items that are not part of the MS-22 will not be on the default budget next year. So that's an important piece to note. And that using these funds, if that were the choice of the board, would not change the outcome of what the taxpayers voted for. So if the reason for the vote or whether it's a reason or not, the outcome of the vote was to have a specific anticipated increase or decrease in taxes, that will not change as a result of using these funds that have already been raised through taxation. It is not entirely accurate to say that it doesn't have a tax impact, because in theory, the board could say, you know what, why don't we just give the entire $1.1 million back to offset taxes? That's not the purpose of why they retained it in the first place, so it wouldn't make sense that they would do that. But in theory, that could take place. But the outcome of the vote to reduce the original proposed budget by $3 million and whatever that estimated tax impact, that would remain the same if this process were. I'm going to hold my recommendation. I have 3. I'm going to hold my recommendation until after the board has had its own conversation and that there have been public comments.
So the board received these slides a couple days ago so that we could ask the board members to look at each of the line items and really consider if this is worth the risk to take this catastrophe fund and use it for our current catastrophe. And what would we put it toward? And so I'm the one who asked Ruben not to share his recommendation yet, I know that he has a lot of background information that we don't have as far as how things can move in the district, but I felt at this point that the board really needed to have responsibility in saying, this is what I value, and this is what I really think should be the priority of a horrible situation. So what's going to happen next is the board is going to have a discussion about this 1.1 million. And whether we spend all of it, whether we spend some of it, whether we not spend it at all, and what we spend it on. And this is going to be just a discussion. We aren't going to vote on this at this point in our meeting. Following that, we will have a time of public comments. Now, our policy has set up to have a 15-minute public comment at near the beginning and a 15-minute at the end, because by law, we need to have a minimum of 30 minutes available. Because this is a special meeting with very specific circumstances, we chose to have one single public comments that will go 30 minutes minimum, and then the board will vote if we wish to extend that. Public comments, I will remind you later, but will be 2 minutes per person. Please do not repeat by coming up to the microphone a second time, even if there's a gap. Speak once. So I see a couple people writing, take notes, know what you want to say when you come up, okay? Who would like to begin the discussion? No, I'm sorry, I can't take questions right now. No, thank you, nope. Yep, so right now, we're just going to go with the discussion part of no, it's not public comments right now. Right now, it's discussion by the board of Ruben's presentation. Christine, would you mind going first? Vice Chair.
All right. So I am idea of no. No. Oh. That girl. All right. So I am interested in using these. All right. I'm going to try from here. Can't hear me, I apologize. I am interested in funds that we catastrophic funds paying as much as can.
Hello? Hello?
This works better. I am interested in using the catastrophic funds to restore as much as we can. I think it's important to realize that this will not impact the default budget, but this also will not put programs back into the default budget, which is important to understand. So if we, as a board, decide that we want to put one of these big programs back in, next time we have voting, they will not be there. Voters will have to decide that these programs are of value, and they will have to vote. When they vote for the budget, they will have to vote for those items. It's important to understand that. This has been a catastrophe, and it will continue to be a catastrophe. Even if we can put a little over $1 million back into our schools, we're losing a lot. We lose a lot of educational opportunities for our students. And frankly, that's what I hear from kids. When I talk to kids, They talk about the loss of education. Parents talk about the loss of sports. And yes, of course, kids talk about sports too. But they talk about STEM. They talk about. So it's a lot. It's a lot of people who are impacted. And if we can do this, I'm curious to hear what our other board members say, but at this point, I am very interested in restoring whatever we can.
I kind of agree with you, Christine. We aren't going to be able to restore everything. People are still going to be unhappy if it's not what they wanted restored. We'll just have to look at it and see what we can do. We'll have to keep our fingers crossed that we don't need this. I guess I'm a little disgusted. We've got these old buildings and they're just going to continue to fall apart with no care. You don't do that with your houses. We certainly don't want to do that with the schools. But at this point, this cut was significant. It was significant and it affected a broad range of things. And so things have to be cut. But if we can work on using some of this to restore some of these things, then I'm willing to give it a try.
I did what was asked of me, questions and things, but they're not gonna change my list. So I was asked to put together a list of things that we could have put back in if we could use the 1.1 mil. And my choices were athletics, co-curricular costs, field trips, the director position, universal pre-K teachers, universal pre-K paraprofessionals, the groundskeeper and custodians related to athletics. I also suggested an increased 35K reduction in supplies. We've lost 224 students and our consumables keep going up. So I think there's room there to reduce that by another 35K.
I'm new on the board and unfortunately my account wasn't set up, so I have to kind of take a back seat to this. I don't feel right actually voting on any of this because I'm not fully informed, but I will say that it's horrible seeing what's being cut and you know, in my heart, I just don't think that all of these programs should be cut, especially not athletics and things that mean so much to students to have them be well-rounded people. That's it.
So I support the proposal brought forward to use unanticipated revenue fund balance. When I listened to Ruben's presentation, first thing on his agenda was to retain, well, the budget priorities, retain highly qualified educators and continue the educational improvement initiatives that were begun, I would say 10 years ago at least, but certainly more actively this last 8 years. And so I think I'll leave it there at this point. I think that it is a shame what happened. We lost a lot, as several of my colleagues have pointed out. Since this money will not go into the default budget next year, we're still going to have a problem. If we want to continue to pursue educational improvement, then the community is going to have to get behind our schools. So, okay.
Yeah, I think regardless of whether we like this option of the board kind of having to independently do this or not, this is the option we have. This is the one option we have in order to save sports, pre-K. I mean, those are the things I think every single person on the board has probably had their email inbox blow up, and we we fully understand, right? I think that I feel what everyone has to say, but it doesn't need to be explained to us how important these are. There's a reason they were in our initial budget. And I'll say that in the immediate aftermath of that deliberative session, with a $3 million cut, I said and have said consistently since then how harmful to students in the community this would be. And it truly has been. And I think even if we are able to do this, and I fully support using this option, it is in fact our only option. So not doing so would pretty much solidify these cuts we have. But a lot of damage has been done here already. And we can only bring back about a third of what was cut. So I think while there may be some positives here, I hope that people understand that there are still many people that will be losing their jobs here, and that these decisions that the board needs to make together based on kind of what each of us feels are the budget priorities. Personally, there's two big items in there, pre-K and athletics, that I would like to see retained. I think there are probably some other options as well. But I think it's the one lifeline we have in order to not, I guess I can't imagine the schools moving forward, and I'm just seeing the damage that would happen if we didn't bring these programs back, and I couldn't vote for that. So this is the option we have, and I'm going to recommend we move forward with a careful and well thought out process that we agree on what programs to bring back. And again, this will be, I think if I understand the logistics of it, we'll state that intent tonight so that contracts can move forward, but there's still another hearing in August. So this is not over at that time. People won't have a chance to vote, but we'll certainly want to hear from you, but you will fully understand what our intent is for that money. And we'll be seeking your feedback. So probably had enough time here, so I'll hand it over.
So we'll have a few more minutes for discussion. I'd like you to be thinking if there are any clarifying questions that you have for Ruben about the presentation. For my part, I think that we should use the money, and I think we should use all of that money for this. We still have money in the maintenance fund that we can hang on to, but I think that the 1.1 needs to put a dent in this tragic, ridiculous fiction we're living. So that will be my vote. I think one question I have is tonight, do we need, I know sometimes when we have like a deliberative session, you can say, let's put this money back and put this money back, and you can't really say what it's going to. You just put the money back and trust that it's going to what you're asking. So in tonight's case, if we say, I want to put this much money into athletics, this much money into pre-K, this much money into something else, is that what we're voting on? Or are we simply voting on how much money we want to promise that in August, we're going to say, this is what we want to have approval to spend?
So in August, the only way that this money can be spent is if you have a public hearing, and the public hearing has to specify exactly what you are spending it on. I would like us to know exactly what we're spending it on tonight for a variety of reasons. There are a lot of people who need to know the impact to their jobs, to perhaps decisions that they're making for their own families and so forth next year. It's important that we have clarity as much as possible. If we even just get some major items and there are, let's say there's money remaining and there needs to be some more thought given to that, that would be fine. But I think any major items that are going to involve positions in particular, as we know that that's coming up very soon, and there are certainly we have a domino effect of reduction in forces if we don't know what's happening.
Okay. So what I'd like to do is say what I want, but, and then to open it up again to the board for any last minute, this is what I would really like to see happen. And then I'd like Ruben for you to share your recommendation. And then we'll open to public comments. Does that sound good? Okay. So what I would like to see the money go to is the full athletics line item, the full pre-K line item, and then any remaining funds go to staffing. And I know that, again, it's a situation where there can be some fluidity and movement. I don't want to say this particular role because that already might be able to be absorbed in another area. I'm going to trust that the admin have the best eye for whatever funds are remaining can save one person's job, basically. But that's going to be my recommendation.
I 100% agree that universal pre-K should be protected. I'm going to say also athletics, but I'm going to add in there co-curriculars because I'm saying co-curriculars because so much of our, what the younger children recognize or our older students recognize as unified arts are being cut. I'm hoping that through our co-curriculars and clubs that we can still manage to offer some of that programming. And that will also be available to our homeschool and charter school students as well. So those two big programs I hope to protect forever. And I agree with Lisa that it is difficult to choose one position, but would instead prefer to say that any remaining funds go to protect staffing.
So I guess I agree with Lisa that I definitely want to see the pre-K come in and stay. I have mixed things. I think the sports are important. I don't know if we can, I think the rec departments need to pick up more of the sports. We seem to have absorbed all the sports and they have seemed to absorb nothing. So I just feel like that needs to be shared. I think the sports are important for well-rounded students. I don't know that those are my two big things that I want restored. Definitely the pre-K.
As I said, I'm in a weird position because I'm new here, but I don't want to see the sports go away. I don't want to see the extracurriculars go away. As someone who was a working mom from the time her daughter was 10 months old, I really feel for everybody who has younger kids and they want them to have, free or very reduced cost programs. But I've read that the daycare center here has a highly reduced price that a infant can go for $600 a month. And I have a friend that works at Lincoln Labs down in Mass, and their on-site daycare is $3,000 a month, and the average cost of daycare in New Hampshire for an infant is $1,400. And I don't really understand why that hasn't been mentioned as a way for them to recoup some of their money, but I am learning here too. But I don't want to see sports go. I don't want to see extracurriculars, and I'd like to see the teachers stay as much as possible.
All right, so yeah, I would agree with my colleagues on all of these things. You know, in general, I think that looking at the numbers, it looks to me like we could retain the pre-K program, which is extremely important to many of our families. And of course, the sports program, I think, is critical. For many of our students, it's what brings them to school and makes them feel connected. And by the way, I think that the full sports program is critical. We have 9 basketball teams playing this year. 2 girls and 2 boys at the high school level, 3 boys teams and 2 girls teams at the middle school level. And what that does is to bring kids in who have never had a chance to learn about sports and basketball, who come from families where this was not a big deal, and now they feel a part of the school. And some of them actually have become pretty good basketball players. Right? So I totally support that. And I also support the French language program. I think it's critical that we don't turn in on ourselves at a time like this. It's important that we have programs that look out to the world. And we have some amazing alumni, kids who have graduated from here and have gone on to do amazing things around the world. And I think we should continue to support that. So I would include French and co-curriculars. And to me, the Little Orioles, the daycare center, is a no-brainer. Costs us very little because people do pay for it, and you know, the people who use it. But we also are keeping some amazing teachers as a result of having that. And from what I understand, there is enough money in the retainage to do those things.
Yeah, I guess unsurprisingly, I agree with a lot of what's been said here. I neglected to include certainly co-curriculars before. I think I talked about athletics. I think I have the whole baseball team sitting in front of me right here. So it kind of came to mind, but certainly the full sports and co-curricular program. I guess to hit on John's point, we certainly hear the different opinions and do consider them and think about them, right? I think you guys see this discussion here, and it may seem like, oh, we just decided right away. I can tell you that we spend a lot of time talking about this, not as a full board, but as individuals, thinking about it and talking about it outside of meetings, what the ramifications are. We do carefully consider everything. I know that it can look like we make decisions really quick sometime, but we've spent hours and hours, not as a full board again, but individually talking about this with each other, with school board lawyers, you know, all of the above, at least I can state for myself. So these decisions, the feedback is heard and our decisions are made for a reason. So I guess certainly pre-K, full co-curricular sports. And I agree with John as far as the French program there. I think we have one teacher, and if we were to lose that, that's probably gone forever. So just as we could keep a whole program just by keeping one teacher, and I think that would be a shame to lose that. So I second John's motion there if that could stand. And I would like to talk a little bit about some of those other areas, because right, we do consider other cuts, and we have carefully considered these things like the Little Orioles Center. and how it makes financial sense. Yes, it costs money, right? Teachers pay, but it still costs the taxpayers money. And we know the details of what would be the cost to the district if we didn't do this, right? It's not just, I'll throw out an example. There would be teachers that would leave, right? Most likely because they couldn't do it. And like there's a cost to replace those teachers. And it may be difficult to replace those teachers. I'm sure, as you can imagine, when teachers are choosing their places of employment, I'm going to guess they're going to look here and see the budget cuts and possibly think twice, right? I don't think it's going to be easy going forward to recover from this. That's some of the other damage that's been done by this. When we talk about things like, cut administrator raises, right? This has been a large budget cut, and we're going to need our administration to keep the district going and keep it growing in the future, right? That's what we need. To suggest that they don't deserve raises and then expect them to kind of keep the district together, to me, is not a fair thing for the board to ask. And it's not sustainable, right? Again, these are very talented people that, are passionate about our district and want to do this, and we want to give them a reason to stay. I've seen about transportation thrown around. There's a lot of money that we can save there. I'll just say that's not something that's educationally appropriate. There has been times in the past when it's been emergency situations where we've saved money. That was 2 years ago, not this last year. And, we have discussions with parents, the parents whose children use the buses, and have seen how detrimental that was to a lot of them. So we have looked at all that closely. We have discussed it. This is the option that we have now. We've made a lot of other hard cuts. None of them are good. None of them are good for our learners, the cuts that we made. That's the hardest thing I think about being on the board here, is we all join this to make things better for learners. Now we're being put in a situation where all of these decisions that we've cut have made things worse for learners. I don't care how you couch it. That's the facts. So that's difficult, but we do have an opportunity to restore some things. So I think we'll do that carefully. Again, I support what John said. And hopefully in August, we will have that money to retain, and the district can continue to move forward and build on that.
We are going to open up unless there's any further discussion. Anybody? Okay. Further discussion?
Not going to change. Any discussion is not going to change my life.
All right. Yeah. So Ruben, please share your recommendation.
Hello? No, this one's working, fine. All right, so my recommendation is a little bit different. Some of it's the same, but I have it a little bit broader because I care about the sustainability of this district, and I care about the people who are here, every single individual room. For years, several years, we've been talking about this at a board and as a board, and perhaps we have not done a good job communicating the importance of this to the entire community so that people understand. There have been specific trends occurring in the state of New Hampshire with what public school is going to look like in the future. And that future is coming closer and closer all the time. And so one of the conversations we've been having is that at some point, there's going to be universal choice for schooling. If you want to go to the public school next door, you'll be able to do that. If they want to come here, they'll be able to do that, et cetera. And that's, that is closer than ever to happening, as in it could be actually passed in the next 2 months. And right now, there's a House Bill 741 and there's a Senate Bill 101. Both of these talk about giving parental choice, and choice happens. That Massachusetts has this already. They do it differently, and they do a lot of things differently and a little more structured so that there's accountability and so forth. But nonetheless, you can see that if this were to pass the way it is, that individuals going to another district or individuals coming here from another district, the other district would end up looking to pay 80% of their cost per pupil. Our cost per pupil is less than most in the region, so they'd get less from us. Some places nearby, we would actually gain more than what our cost per pupil would be if their learners came over here. The importance when you get into a system like this is to be the school district that people want to choose to attend. And it's so vital that the systems that we've developed keep on strengthening. We are doing things that no one else in this region is doing. And we are years ahead of many in multiple areas. It is important that we continue that work. This has not been a positive situation over the last couple of months. And hopefully that won't harm the movement that we had been making toward being situated well for this. The other thing about this first part that I recommend is that as we go forward is that we stay informed, that we commit to working together regardless of what our political affiliation is, because that really doesn't matter. We need to be aware of what's happening and how it's going to impact our schools and our community. And we need to be active. Passive is not okay. The next thing is I subscribe to every social media platform there is. I like to learn about myself and I like to kind of see what's happening. And that's fine. I learn a lot because I think it's important to know what people's truth is. And it's okay that people have differences of opinions and they think differently. And I respect that. I don't comment back. That would be inappropriate for me to do in my position. And in the end, you know, we just keep moving forward. We need to find common ground and work together to solve problems. And we need to treat one another in this community with love and respect. A quote from one of my favorite leadership, authors, speakers, cultural anthropologist, researcher, Simon Sinek, many of you know, famous book, Getting to Why. A culture is strong when people work with each other for each other. A culture is weak when people work against each other for themselves. This past Advent, I was driving through this community and I said, you know what? I'm going to stop in at a church. And I chose to do that, stop over at one that's fairly close by to this location. And the theme of Advent was love. And there was a lot of conversation. And I was reminded of love your neighbor as yourself. And then what is love? There's a lot of books and a lot of literature. There's philosophers. There's a great German philosopher who has some wonderful things about love and the foundation of so many relationships. But the minister at that day chose to use some of this anyway. I chose to extend it and use a couple more verses. And I'm going to read that. And it comes from the New Testament, 1 Corinthians 13:4. And it says this: love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. That needs to be this community. And I have some specifics, and I think there are there's more that can be done than this. Depends on how things fall into place with the remainder of the year and budgets. Universal access to 4-year-old full-day pre-K has to remain. It is critical, and research is very clear about this, that for financial sustainability, and that's the least important, and within a community, this is important. It's important for so much more. The French program was mentioned. This one was tougher because there are so many positions, and I don't want any of them to go. But if I were to separate all and the positions and to look at the system as a whole, this is the one that, if gone, takes out an entire program and takes out an entire set of offerings for middle and high school learners. Middle and high school, the last time we had to make some serious budget cuts, had to do some serious work and let some things go then. It's not perfect in the other areas. There's some loss at the elementary school. Universal access to 4-year-old pre-K sets in motion a very good situation where, with some retirements, many individuals will be able to remain here. And then we saw one of those arrows was our activities and athletics. So not only do we need our learners to thrive academically, social, emotionally, we need them to thrive in expressing themselves and building their perseverance and their persistence and their collaboration and their communication and everything that they learn through things that they value and are interested in and want to explore and can build relationships with and have a greater sense of belonging. District-wide activities and athletics is needed within this district. It needs to be needed, or it is needed, for all kids, all learners. So what that would look like are those numbers up there. If this recommendation were to go through, and it sounds like a couple of these areas are agreeable by and large. This does not include custodians. It does not include the grounds keeper. It does include putting back an administrative assistant who would help with a lot of the work that would need to go on. And that has a ripple effect all the way through the district if that's not put in. So that's also, it's a systems conversation. Doesn't mean there is a little bit extra money that would be left here if there was a full retainage. So we could start to look at some of those other roles. If we were to start to find some other revenue, we could put some of those back in. If we were to have 111,000 as or as we expect at the end in June, we could pay that $76,000 for the buybacks early so that we could, that groundskeeper. So those are some things that I think we could still try to gain those positions back to help everything. But if I were going to put them in a hierarchical order, this is what I would suggest.
Thank you, Ruben. We're now going to open up to public comments. We will have a minimum of 30 minutes for them. Please keep your comments to 2 minutes tops. Instead of my handy dandy timer I brought last time, I'm simply, because we're going to be coming up to the microphone, please only come up to the microphone. Do not try to call out from your seat. I am going to give you a little here. If you don't see it, then I will call out and explain that you need to stop. The public comments. Let me see, I just had it up. Oh, thank you for that. Just as a reminder, we will not hear personal complaints of school personnel, nor complaints against any person connected with the school system. Other channels are provided for board consideration and disposition of legitimate complaints from school personnel or involving individuals, which should be referred to the superintendent for appropriate action. Any individual desiring to speak shall give their name, address, and the group, if any, that is represented. I'm going through the policy real quick for really important things that we always seem to forget. Any comments which do not adhere to our policies or which disrupt the official business of the board may be ruled out of order by the chair. Repeated disruption may result in the individual being asked to leave the meeting. Obscene speech, comments threatening bodily harm, or other unprotected speech will not be tolerated. The board chair may terminate the speaker's privilege of address if the speaker does not follow the above rules of order. Repeated violations or disruptions may result in the intervention of law enforcement, which we have present, with the potential for criminal charge. No, decorum, civility, respect, love. Let's do this well. All right. The microphone is here. Your floor.
Hello, Mike Rowland, Jaffrey, New Hampshire. I'm also a district employee. First and foremost, I would like to say thank you to the board for all the work that you've done. Very hard decisions that we have to make. Understanding the concessions that we're making are temporary. They're a Band-Aid to provide sports, which are very important, and programs which are equally as important. But we are losing. We're losing my colleagues. This is a very deep cut, and we need to be thinking about what will come next. Next year, this is going to come back on the table. We cannot lose anymore. Our administration, current administration, has the school working at one of the best places I've seen in working here for 25 years. The programs that we offer and the things that we do for our kids cannot be undermined by a loud voice. Do not sow the seeds of hate, but instill intelligence in decision-making, thoughtfulness in decision-making. I do not want to see my students gutted because the sports that they love have disappeared. I do not want to see my students who have lost a program that supports drama, that supports music, and supports extracurriculars that keep them coming to school. I support every one of our teachers 100%. And to be honest with you, and this hurts me deeply to say this, and I'm sorry, guys, but I would rather have every single teacher here than to have to put teachers out of work to support something else. We're faced with a very hard decision, and I hope that we can educate ourselves so that when we come back to this place, we're making intelligent decisions. Thank you.
Just a quick point of order, just real quick point of order. If you could see the line behind you, this is 30 minutes. So I appreciate the applause and the encouragement. I really think that this community needs to be encouraged, absolutely. But please keep it quick. Christine, do you have a motion? Subtle, right?
I would like to make a motion to allow students to speak.
Is there a second? Sandra, thank you for the second. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Great. So this means that students are welcome to come to the podium as well. Again, I do appreciate the applause, people, but we have a long line of people we want to do. We could, you know, keep that to a minimum.
Hi, I'm Kathy Batchelder. I live in Jaffrey, New Hampshire, 212 Nutting Road. I'm just here to extend an invitation to this entire audience, because when this comes around again at the deliberative session next year, these things aren't going to be in your budget. So you better be in the seats, making sure that they're put back in the budget so that we don't have to go through this again.
Megan Berger, Lordbrook Road and Ringe, and I'm here to present a letter of support written by Mike Perot on behalf of the members of Working Together for Jaffrey and Ringe. Dear Superintendent Ruben Duncan and elected school board officials, on behalf of Working Together for Jaffrey Ringe, we recognize the extraordinary impact that cutting the district's operating budget by $3 million will have on our public school system, educators, and student learners for calendar year 2025, 2026, and beyond. The final decision on what programs, clubs, and other educational opportunities were sacrificed to meet the requirement was devastating and unfortunate. There were no good options and no easy choices. We support the consensus of the school board and will explore ways to restore what has been lost. We also acknowledge the painstaking efforts that preparing the proposed courses of action and delivering them to the public while under immense scrutiny. Your diligence, thoroughness, and transparency throughout the process inspired confidence in your commitment to ensuring our district remains capable of providing an adequate education despite these fiscal constraints. Furthermore, we respect the will of the voters and therefore accept the unfortunate outcome of the election. We will continue our efforts to improve community dialogue on the challenges of our public school system, our public school system faces, while advocating for responsible legislation from our state representatives regarding education, fair funding strategies, and protections for special needs children. We stand by our students and we stand by you. Thank you.
Joel Aho, 18 Butternut Lane in Ringe. So I just wanted to I guess, read into the record and post to the board the question if this applies to anybody or not. It's from I believe it's from the Jaffrey Ringe school district website. The board member conflict of interest and nepotism language. Just going to read the last paragraph, but I believe it's up on the website. It says, in the event a family member of a board member is an employee of the district or is being considered for employment, the board member shall identify his/her relation to the applicant or employment and recuse him/herself from debating, discussing, or voting on any matter in which the outcome has the potential to affect the family member. For the purpose of this policy, a family member includes father, mother, brother, sister, wife, husband, son, daughter, daughter or son-in-law, sister or brother-in-law. So just posing the question, and if I'm not sure if it's been addressed previously or if it applies to anybody here or this specific meeting, but.
I'll be very short. I can hardly hear anything being the,
Jed, give us your
I-
name and address, please.
what?
Jed, give us your name and address.
Your name and address.
Name? Oh, I didn't even hear that. Jed Brummer, Ringe. 4 words. Build community or die.
I'm the one that's short. Mine will be a little bit longer. Okay?
2 minutes, Judy.
Yep. This has been a long and contentious 7 weeks. Judy Unger Clark, Fitzgerald Road, Ringe. This has been a long and contentious 7 weeks. While I don't like the dilemma that we've gone through, the district and school board has worked tirelessly and appropriately to come up with a solution to meet the filing of the MS-22 document. To our administrators and elected officials, your work has allowed for appropriate citizen input and has been transparent in its execution. The board, please proceed with the filing of the MS-22 documents with the acknowledgement of the board's budget cuts. Restore the vital educational components to improve learning opportunities with the unanticipated revenue funds. This has been a very difficult and a tough pill to swallow, but it is the result of dissension in our communities. And I will reiterate what Jed just said. We need to restore unity in these communities. For the students in our communities, we are sorry for the upcoming changes in your school community. What you are witnessing is an important experiential lesson in civic responsibility. When you turn 18, please register to vote. Learn how to be an informed voter. Always research the facts before you vote. And after the vote, now you're not going to understand any of this. Go home and look it up on YouTube. I'm going to quote Jim McKay from an old TV show. It was called The Wide World of Sports. You will experience, after a vote, you will experience either the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat.
I'm Linda Sargent Tanner. I live in Goddard Road, Ringe, New Hampshire. First of all, thank you, all of you and the administrators. Secondly, I see a lot of people here that are very concerned about what's going on. I'd make sure you get their names so when we need a committee to get the information out next spring, we have some people we can call to do some PR for us. Thank you.
Braden Dion, student athlete here at Conan. I live at 11 Hamilton Court in Jaffrey. A lot of what's seen by the students is like back and forth between two different sides, and I think it's childish. Really, a community shouldn't be focused on their self needs. They should be focused on the public needs and the future needs. And to discount the futures of the students, I think, is one of the most disrespectful things I've come across so far in my life. Just to see the arguing and the banter over my future, 6 people's future here, people's future scattered throughout the crowd. I think it's stupid, for lack of better words. And I think the common misconception is in the community is that the school's failing or that students are failing. That's not true. What is true is that students here in various groups like NHS or Interact or any co-curriculars are providing for the community. If you're a basketball fan here, you probably know around here, Hoops for Hope, that's sponsored by NHS. So if you go, you can thank students here. We have students here that volunteer at the rec program. Students volunteer at the rec program. We don't get paid for that. We go there for service hours. And a lot of what's done in the community is sponsored and helped by the students. So if you're a parent, taxpayer, adult in this crowd tonight or listening, before you go to bed, I'd like to have you reflect on decisions you've made and how they might have affected the students and youth of this town or towns. Thank you.
Talk about a tough act to follow. My name is Mark Teeger, 18 Bradley Court in Jaffrey. Couple of things. I want to thank Ruben, everybody on the board for the work they've done on this. It's not been easy, been tedious and frustrating, but thank you for the job you've done. That's number one. Maybe some of you were around, maybe you weren't, in the late 60s, early 70s perhaps, maybe looking out over the crowd. And Ruben, you probably know the answer, or you know, what year was the district founded? No?
Mark, I'm sorry, we're not going to respond to comments at this time and questions. None of us knows the answer offhand, but we're not going to respond. 1969. If we were.
Okay. Okay, the district was founded in, I believe, the late 1960s, Conan, 1971. Here's my point. My point is the name of the district is the Jaffrey Ringe Cooperative School District. It's not the Jaffrey District. It's not the Ringe District. The operative word is cooperative. And I would suggest that that's what we all need to do. A little more cooperation. Thanks.
Carrie Swift, Jaffrey. I'm a proud employee of this district for 11 years. I would like to board to, I know there's a lot of cuts and I know that there are really hard cuts, but I'd like the board to consider, if at all possible, to restore our middle school general music teacher. I'd like to consider the impacts on our performance ensembles. If you were at our concert on Thursday last week, we have 5 performance ensembles. And with my current schedule, that leaves me with 1 period to teach general music. And I'm very concerned for those students that are in our performance ensembles that removing our general music teacher will impact those ensembles. Those kids that are in these band and chorus programs, for a lot of them, that is their sport, that is their club. That is their reason to come to school. And I wanted to make sure that the board is aware of the potential impact to those ensembles and that we do what we can to make sure that those ensembles remain intact. Thank you.
Amanda Kinnanen, Old Military Road in Ringe. I simply have more of a administrative business type of a question, but with the board and Ruben Duncan seeming to agree that the proposed plan to use the retained money to restore the athletics and the clubs and the pre-K, would there be any way for the board to leave those items, even, I know Ruben mentioned at the last board meeting about leaving a dollar amount in those items in order to retain them in the current budget, and then they wouldn't have to be reinstated in the budget the following year if they are never fully actually removed from the budget. If that is the intention to keep them this year, I think it would make it easier to keep them the following year. I know, I don't know all the ins and outs. I just know from the last meeting, there was a comment that that was a possibility, and I just think it would be worth considering. Thank you.
Hello, Leslie McLean, 47 Redgate Road in Jaffrey, and I'm an employee of the district. A lot of you are expressing appreciation for how hard everyone worked, and they did. And so have members of the SAU and the administration in the schools. So one of the things to consider, if we are ever in this boat again, which goodness, I really hope we're not, but to think carefully about administrative costs. I would say administrative costs got blown out of the water the last 8 weeks or 7 weeks, however long this has been going on. We're lucky our board is not paid by the hour, right? This would be a devastating blow for the amount of effort and work they've had to put in. And your SAU staff and other staff have been working on all of these ideas and proposals, and as a result, doing their regular work late into the evening. And please just keep that in mind when you're making a decision. It's not just how it impacts next year and how it impacts this year, right? This year, I think our children lost their administration for 6 weeks. All right. And we want to be there for those kids. We want to be there for all of you. And people tend to think we're far away from the kids, but we're not, because you'd find out really quickly if something happened. If our payroll person decided, I can't handle this stress and isn't going to come in, and nobody gets paid, right? Or the vendors stop being paid because the woman in AP has had a problem. I myself bounced into the hospital. Maybe it's stress. I don't know. It could have been. It wasn't, definitely wasn't helped by stress, and lost a day and a half of work, right? Which, guess what? I did it at night, which probably didn't help my stress. So please just think carefully when you say, oh, it's just 3 million. What's the big deal? It's next year. Who cares? It's this year. It's hurting the children this year. Thank you.
We have about 10 more minutes available, but I think I'd like to see if there's a motion to invite staff who are out of district, who live out of district. That's not part of our policy to normally invite to public comments, but I think that if somebody wanted to make that motion, it would be appropriate.
I would
Okay,
make that.
Thank you, John. Second? Christine, thank you for the second. All approve? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, no abstains. So if there's more public comments, we have a few minutes, and if there's any staff who live outside of Jaffrey Ringe, please, you are welcome to come up.
Hi, thank you for making that motion. My name is Leah Giles, and I'm a teacher at JGS. This is my second year working there. I'm so proud to work at that school. I wanted to speak tonight about the importance of our administrators. My conscience wouldn't be clear if I didn't say that it's the administrators, our superintendent, our principal, our assistant principal, our director, student services administrators that make my job possible. I'm one of the restorative classroom teachers, which is an intensive learning center for children with significant behaviors. Something wrong? Oh, period. It's administrator support on all levels, from help to complete my special ed certification, helping me understand the role of being a case manager and all the laws and paperwork that go with it, for being available to support me and our students when we need help, for providing the time, space, and attention to follow up daily. Because without administrator support, doing this job and keeping this program going wouldn't be possible. I wanted to make sure that the board and the residents of this community know this. We have the most dedicated, supportive, available, involved, passionate, strong administrators that I've ever worked with in my 26 years of teaching. And these administrators are a huge part of retaining highly qualified staff. So I just needed you to know that.
Hi, we have one more guest at the speaker, and then we are going to open up the Zoom comments. So I think we'll stop the in-person comments at this time after our last entry here, and then we'll open up for Zoom comments. So people online, please be ready.
Hello, my name is Hannah Manley. I live at 32 Nelson Circle here in Jaffrey. I'm a senior here at Conant High School, student athlete. Being an athlete is truly just as important as being a student to me. I value my academics, and I work really hard in my athletics as well. I would just like to speak on behalf of all athletes here tonight, those not here tonight. Just thank you to the board, thank you to administration, thank you to teachers, just thank you to the community for coming here today. I've never once questioned that your best interests aren't in it for us. I trust you guys with everything, and I just appreciate everything you've done, talking about bringing stuff back next year. So just thank you on behalf of all athletes here tonight.
Okay, for folks on Zoom, please make sure to state your name and address.
Hello. Hello.
Hi, we can hear you.
Perfect. My name is Mulaney Hibbert. I live in Henniker. Uh, I am employed by the Jaffrey Ringe District. I am the middle school general music teacher at Conant Middle High School. I want to emphasize things that have already been said. Ruben talked about today how taking things away from a system negatively impacts the alignment of the system, and taking away our teaching staff does exactly that. And something that Mike had said earlier, you can't have extras without the teachers and staff to run those operations. There are so many teachers and staff that are coaches, that are club advisors, that make programs that already exist run. And by taking those people away, it doesn't fix it to reinstate those things if you don't have the people to run it. Thank you.
Hello. Hi, my name's Kevin McClung. I'm a teacher at Conant, 5-year teacher at Conant, 10-day resident of Jaffrey. And maybe it's an unpopular opinion, but we need to put jobs first. We have a really good French teacher, a really good music teacher, a lot of other good teachers we can't afford to lose. And I mean, I hate to say it, but we need to save jobs. It needs to come before sports and everything else. And I'm sorry to say it, and it's true. And I thank the administration and the school board for their courage and recommending this change, which is not a good change, but it's the best of possible or bad possible choices. Thank you.
This is Pat Martin from 17 Farrow Road in Ringe. And my question is, can we make donations to help fill the gap? Not putting any stipulations on how the money is spent.
So Pat, we're not going to be taking questions at this public comments. In part, that answer was made prior to and during Ruben's presentation. We'll definitely be talking more about donations another time, but we're not going to be answering questions on that today.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
That's cool.
Hello, my name is Christy Delgado. I am an employee at Ringe Memorial School. I just wanted to say thank you to the board and to the administration, and to give a little bit of my perspective. I have taught in 5 countries. I have worked with great administration. I have worked with not so great administration. I have worked with great faculties, not so great faculties. This community of educators across the entire district is by far the best community I have worked with. And that is in large part due to the community members, due to the faculty, due to the students, due to the administration. If I personally am worried at how the cuts will affect the students, and then that will in turn affect everything else. I do think it's important to keep the faculty in mind, in that something I say at the end of every class, or try to, is RMS. Together, we are the best. I truly believe that. I hope that we can do as much as we can as a community to stay together, and as a faculty as well. Thank you.
At this time, I don't want to shut off the Zoom comments just yet. Just pause for one moment. We are at the 30-minute mark, and so I will entertain a motion from the board to continue the public comments for another 15 minutes, if they choose.
Make a motion.
Christine, second?
Second.
Thank you, John. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? All right, thank you. Please continue with the Zoom comments.
Hi. My name is Devin Spurka. I am a resident of Ashburnham, Massachusetts. I'm the girls varsity basketball coach and girls varsity soccer coach. I just wanted to give a huge thank you to the school board for really problem solving and taking this issue seriously. I know it's been, a tough road for the athletes and a lot of students at the school, but this definitely gives me some hope that athletics will be continuing next year, I'm hoping. And that puts a lot of light back into a lot of students' lives again. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Okay. I want to thank everybody for sharing their input. sharing your encouragement of the board in this brutal time and sharing with each other in this time. I can't even tell you what this means to all of us up here that you all showed up. Thank you. Next action item is follow-up discussion. And I've asked Ruben to place on the screen a spreadsheet so that we can be as specific as possible about how much of the funds to retain and how to use those funds. Understand that there's no joy in this. I am so pleased that we can give some hope. I know that I felt some hope when I saw these numbers. What we're losing is irreparable, and we are going to continue. This is another step. This is simply another step. There are more steps ahead. Everything is on the table, and there are more steps ahead. This isn't the end of the story. So yes, we are signing the MS-22 tonight and eradicating millions of dollars from our budget and all the people that involves and all the places that involve. But these are the steps we have to take. We want to be as responsible as possible in doing it and as transparent as possible as well. So.
Lisa,
Yeah,
can I ask a question?
yes, this is a perfect time for follow-up discussion and question.
And I know that Pat, when she called in, asked the question, we discussed it a little bit. Ruben had presented that in his report about donations, right? And what they could do to offset. And what I took from that is maybe, right? Maybe donations can be used to offset it. But I think it's hard not having an answer right now, because let's say, I'll just throw out an example, right? We're going to have a large athletics co-curriculars budget, right? Out of all those areas, I'd be willing to bet that we could get donations for athletics co-curriculars, just from conversations I've had in the community. If the community were willing to step up and do that, that could possibly, save one more teaching job, if you will. I know that's kind of throwing something into the mix right now, but I think as we're talking about these numbers, about what to include, I guess it's a bit of a risk, but in my mind, I'm thinking, possibly if that athletics number maybe isn't the full, 700 and something K, we can assume some donations there to move up. I know it might be risky, but at the same time, it might allow us to save like 2 teachers in important academic programs. It's just something that's on my mind as we make these decisions. I don't know how final this has to be, but I understand from Ruben's perspective, we're probably offering teachers contracts within like the next month, right? Next few weeks. So I think our intent, yes, we need to make these decisions so the administration can figure this out. I don't know. I don't know if that complicates things, but I guess it's something that's on my mind. That maybe we could make the assumption, and I have a hard time believing that we can't accept donations. I'd be willing to do that.
My understanding from the beginning of the presentation is that we cannot budget for donations. And the money that we'd be looking at is actually positions that we have to contract with in the next couple of weeks. So this isn't something that we can put off because we have to get people's contracts done. But also, we can't, we can hope for donations. That would be lovely. And donations would be an incredible help in helping us recover and redeem some of what is lost. But that would be very hard to do with teachers' contracts and staff contracts. More discussion.
School budgets are very complicated, and to exemplify how complicated school budgets are, there's a phrase called unanticipated revenue. And there are rules around that, and that's what we're talking about. Can we accept donations? What if we know the donations are coming? What if we don't know the donations are coming? School budgets, complicated. There's policy, there's law, there's people, and there's children. And there's the future. So now we're trying to clean up, and we have Scotch tape, and we're taping it together the best we can. But it's only going to last a year. So when you leave tonight, please talk to your neighbors about how we are going to keep these fantastic programs going.
As you look back at, and as we look back at these line items that are being cut, there are items that can be funded on a quick turnaround. It's just not salaries and some of the things that we have to commit to right now. So again, these are steps we have to take, and the commitments have to be made legally by a certain point. There's other things like some programming, field trips. There are things that we can fund later and seek out multiple sources of getting that. Tonight, we have to make sure that our contracts are as enriched as possible, I guess. I don't know how to put that. We have to go step by step. This is tonight's step.
Well, I appreciate Chris's question, and I realize there's no very clear answer to it. But Ruben, in some of the information you went over earlier regarding the Department of Revenue Administration's rules on unanticipated revenue, those rules are pretty difficult to follow. I don't know if you can shed any light on the question that Chris asked.
Well, I just think we have a conflict between the understanding of that right now with the Department of Revenue Administration having one opinion and our attorney having another opinion. I think in general, the board can accept revenue, unanticipated revenue, and you just have to follow your policies and you can vote to utilize that revenue. I think that the DRA was saying that if you accept revenue, it has to be used in a specific way, given your situation and the legal documents that you're putting forward to the state, MS-26 and MS-22, and in the fall, the MS-24. So we would just need to continue to iron out the processes. I have, it's 8:50. Is our attorney online? Last name would be Graham. Okay. Gordon, if you're here and listening, to the questions, we can always repeat them. Is that okay for us to allow him to talk about revenue?
Yes.
Okay.
Love clarification.
Thank you. This is
Hello?
Attorney Gordon. Hi.
Hi, Ruben. I've been I've been watching. Excuse me. I'm showing up as Tracy Graham because I'm at home on my wife's computer. Um, yeah, in terms of revenue, as you mentioned, the district has the ability at any time to accept unanticipated revenue and to expend it for the purposes for which it was donated. And if it's donated in general, for general purposes, it has the ability to accept that and spend it for general purposes. But as you point out, and as the board is wrestling with, you have deadlines in terms of notifying employees whether or not they have, whether or not the district is going to be able to fund their position now. Donations that are made during this fiscal year would end up needing to be spent in this fiscal year. Donations that are received after July 1, when the new fiscal year starts, are donations that will be available for you to reinstate other programs or to support programs that the district wishes it could offer, but doesn't know now that it can offer. Does that help explain things?
So in some ways, Gordon, it would be riskier to make a decision now, not knowing that there is no revenue coming in. There may be people who want to find that revenue or fundraise for that revenue, but to make decisions based upon that would be, it would be a risk, especially if we were talking about staffing, because once staffing decisions are made, then the district needs to honor the contracts.
Correct. And it's
Whereas the board's likelihood of having the retainage in August or after July 1 is less of a risk. Seemingly.
That's correct. I believe that's the case. I mean, right now, you don't have a donation in after July is speculation at this point in time. And, you know, if there was a grant that you knew you would become eligible for, you might be able to now anticipate the receipt of that grant if it had been committed to the district to by the granting agency that you were unaware of at the time of the annual district meeting. But that's not what we're talking about. You're talking about donations. They're speculative at this time. They, I'm sure, would be welcome under the circumstances, but because they're speculative, you don't have really, it'd be a more than a risk. It would be a real concern to commit to programming now on your MS-22, banking on speculative revenue that you may receive in the future.
Thank you. Thank you, Gordon.
All right. So Ruben is putting up a PowerPoint for us to itemize. I think what I want to do first is it would be appropriate to have a vote on how much money to expend of this particular line item. Again, we are going step by step with this, folks. The line item in question is the 1,100,000, 150. $1,158,242. So I will take let's have a motion to see if we want to first expend all of that. Let's.
If you have it.
Full- And then we have to do a separate one saying, and to have a public hearing in August. So the first question for the board is, do we want to expend the full amount? And you can say no. This is a massive risk. So the first question to the board, $42. Sorry, Freddie. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. The question was, do we really think we're going to have that from Sandy? Ruben?
The projection right now is that after the warrant articles are funded, that unless there's something else that goes on, aware of, that we should have a little bit over $100,000 remaining at the end of the year. And that means that's separate from what you've retained in that account. So it's really the same amount that's in that account right now, plus maybe less than $500.
All those in favor of retaining the full 5%, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Vote passes 6-0-1. Need the wording. Can I have a motion to plan to have a meeting, to have a public board meeting in August to actually allocate the funds?
Commit to hold a public hearing.
Commit to hold a public hearing in August, retain $1,158,242.
At that point, public hearing.
At the pub-
Yeah.
Thank you for your patience.
Expend the dollars that you.
I move we, and I. Then.
Is there a second?
What was the
Christine,
motion?
second?
What was the motion?
Have a, pub-
Yeah, we have to, by law.
right, so that was the motion.
We have to commit.
We're committing.
Yeah. All right. Any discussion?
In order to spend any of this, you have to have a public hearing. So it's important that they commit to a public hearing for the purpose of whatever is chosen to spend money on for next year.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes 7-0-0. Now looking at the spreadsheet. We had some unified discussion on many of the items.
What I consider.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yep, so Ruben has placed the unified ones on the spreadsheet above. Could you give us a total of these items as we see? So the ones that we put up there are the ones that we've kind of talked about in our recommendations. Can you give us a total of those
Yeah.
5 items?
So, okay, well, I'll tell you how this is working.
Yeah.
So the 1,158,000 and change is the starting balance. So anything that's in that amount category is being subtracted. And so you see the ending balance over here is with, you have $216,613 remaining to be able to use of that amount. So the reverse of that is that's 941,629.
And the athletics includes the trainer,
The athletic trainer,
transportation.
referees, the payment for coaches, assistant coaches. Yep, well, with the co-curriculars, yep. The other item that I had that was attached to this, there were 3 other items that were attached to this in the original cut, which were 3 part-time custodians. If we were to ever talk about revenue, that might be something that we want to consider. We also may want to consider, do we, for this year, talk about athletic teams, at least making sure that they're spending extra care and cleaning up after their environments before going home. That could be something as well. The other person, there was the administrative assistant, that because of all our administrative assistants, I mean, there's a significant amount of work that has to be done for the NHIAA and other areas and business office. There's a lot of money that we have to get right, and our payments have to be done well and in timely fashion and in accordance with our policies. So having the administrative assistant remain allows for everyone else's jobs not to be impacted, if you know what I mean. Like, we don't have to kind of piece things together. And so that one that's important, especially as we grow in programming. And then the groundskeeper was the other one that we talked about. We do have someone who's hired for grounds. We at one point in time did do our outside athletics with one person. That was all that person was able to, get done. So there were no advances to that, but that's something to consider. Also to consider, if we do have that roughly $100,000 remaining toward the end of, we would know by June probably, before JRSSA contracts would be out for that bargaining unit, that we could use the $76,000 that we could save for a position, but we would save it by paying the retirement buybacks sooner than in July.
Charlie?
We're having difficulty here understanding down. Okay, so I have a question.
Could you?
Yeah, I have a question. You were talking about the groundskeeper. Did you say that we did or did not need the groundskeeper for athletics?
I said that we need a groundskeeper for athletics. I said that, it was not in my first go around of, my recommendations because the entire amount didn't cover all of what I was, recommending, and that at one point in time, we were able to at least do the fields with the individual that we have had for a long time. It's preferable to have more than one.
So I'd like to see that added to this list.
All right, I think it would be a good idea to call on each person because there is still some, we want to have 2 questions answered. Do you agree with the priority items as listed? And then what can you add to get as close as possible to the number that we are allocating? So I think I would like to, let's make it easy, Judy, and start with you.
Okay. I know that it was mentioned that interest in retaining the French language teacher and also the middle school music. Those to me are incredibly important. They're right up there with the athletics. Could those be options? Because I know that there's a lot of enthusiasm for the 4-year-old pre-K, but other school districts in the state don't have that. It's a wonderful extra, but since our budget is really tight, it would be nice to have things that other schools consider, standard offerings like music and French. So I just wanted to ask about that.
Ruben, can you add those into the spreadsheet? This is a running tally. Thank you, Judy. And then the first question was, do you approve of the priority items as listed now?
I don't have an opinion. The way they're listed, I personally, no, I don't approve of it. I don't.
This is a really good time for you.
I don't think that we should be spending the money on pre-K. I think we should be spending it on high school things and middle school things for the kids that are already here. And yeah, it's great to do the pre-K when you have extra money, but we don't have extra money. So that's my stance on this.
Thank you. Charlie, do you approve the items as the priority items that were listed originally? And then do you have any additional or any changes you think should be made?
Yes, I agree with the list. And if we have the money, I would also support the French teacher and music in that order. I'm concerned about music because when I looked at class size, all right, we went from a 14 to a 30-person class size just by eliminating one music teacher. And that to me is kind of a stretch. So if we can afford it, I'd say add in the French teacher and the music teacher.
Sandy?
I agree with the list, but I would I think music is more important to me than the French.
Can you believe we're actually
Yeah,
having
can
this?
you believe that from a
Does
French?
this seem like reality to anybody here that we're actually doing this?
Charlie's got a point, 34 kids in class. Seems like a lot.
I am in favor with the general list. I actually believe that we should take out the groundskeeper and put as much money towards education as possible. We keep hearing from the community that people will step up, they'll volunteer, they'll donate money. Well, this, I believe, is an opportunity to volunteer and help us keep up our fields and our craft, and so that we can spend more money on education.
John?
I have to say, I'm having a little bit of trouble following this table and the things that we're including and not including. However, I would say that I think all of these things are important. I would agree with what Christine just said. I think we should focus on the educational piece. And if there are people in the community who want to volunteer, helping with groundskeeping would be a great way to do that. And most importantly, it's not strictly education, even though obviously it affects us. That's all.
Chris?
Yeah, just getting back to what I was referring to before, and Gordon, I appreciate your kind of clarification there. And I recognize that it is a risk to assume for donations. That being said, I think that if we put together a plan that assumed, we could start the year, with a funded, I'll just say athletics program, because I think that athletics and co-curriculars program. And I know there are a number of organizations getting together and I don't know what the number would be, right? Maybe $216,000 is too high, but I don't know. Could we count on the community to fill that balance, and knowing that it wouldn't need to be done right away, but like by the time December rolls around, I know it's risky, but I don't know. I think this is a chance to really get something positive out of this too, to really, I see a lot of community support here right now, and it would be great if that could continue. And the real show of it would be, that continued effort to raise the money to fill the gap. I look at it as not just a risk, but an opportunity and a challenge, because we're making a lot of hard decisions here. And I would love to be able to keep 2 teachers and have the community get together to fund, the second half of the season of athletics and co-curriculars or whatever it is. I don't know. I don't see it as a huge risk if we put that out there to the community at the hearing, that this is going to be what's required. I think there are people that would step up and do that. Just a thought. I know it complicates things, but I think when you're talking about community and partnership, that's one of the things that, we can ask. And I think that's fair for us to ask that at this point. I don't know how to do that formally, but just putting that thought out there.
I agree with the priority items, though in athletics, if there are hourly positions that could take a back seat for now, that we might be able to fill in other ways somehow, for salary positions that we have to commit to right now, that would be my priority. I would be hypocritical to sit here and not say that cutting the Jeffrey Grade School or RMS librarian position to consolidate libraries in some way won't be hugely detrimental. I am a school librarian. I've been a school librarian for ever now. And this war on public schools began in our libraries and is continuing. And there is very much a reason that politicians are driving this war against public libraries. Educating our students begins with them being interested and curious. And our libraries are places that foster that. And so I very much want to see that position not get cut. But I am going to say that for the purposes of majority and an outcome, that the French and the music teacher, if both of those positions could somehow fit into this, if there was some way that we could limit hourly in the athletics so that those both positions could be saved. That will be my. Ruben is crunching them. Sorry.
Out of that amount, 32,000 remaining.
And that's keeping hourly positions in athletics or no?
With this is universal four-year-old pre-K, which, again, we haven't voted on it, but listening to the majority of the conversation that we've been having, that was something. Athletics, co-curriculars, all of that, basically keeping that structure together. And 2 educational positions at the CMHS, general music and French. That's what that includes. If we were assuming starting off at $1,158,242, that gives you a balance of $31,997.
Is there anything, board, that we wish to add or remove?
I just want to say this is ridiculous. This is not the way to build a budget. This is not the way to fund a school. Sorry, I know I'm speaking my personal opinion, and I probably shouldn't do that. But we started this process for Thanksgiving. And now we're trying to decide the future of our students and the future of the teachers. I hope we never have to go through this again. This is no way to care for a community.
Ruben, you have our priorities. The board is in agreement. We've already voted on the money. And so the next agenda item is if the board feels we need a non-public session. None? Any discussion before we adjourn? But yeah, don't go anywhere. Yeah. Oh, yes, it's the next action. I didn't have. So,
All right.
so we are going to sign this and then
I-
comments and adjournment?
I think that, yeah, I think we need a motion to, if these are the areas, to have a motion saying that these are the areas that we want to have the public hearing on. Because we have to be specific with the public. The money is going to be spent on.
Hang on, we're going to approve these items. So is there somebody who has a motion to approve these items? Charlie has the motion to approve these cost items for the hearing, or be presented at the hearing in August. Thank you, John, for seconding. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Vote passes 700. do believe this. I don't think we need a motion because we're signing voted on, but I think we have to do public session.
Approved.
Yeah.
As presented and sign it as a board.
Is there a second? Dean? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Vote passes 601. We just did. Yep, yep, motion done, now we're signing. Our next board meeting, because I know all of you will be there, is in 2 weeks. My calendar isn't coming up. On April 7th, excuse me. April 7th at 6:30. Before we adjourn board, we need committee updates real quick. We're not going to set the committees until that meeting, so we're not going to have any meetings at that time, but we do want to consider goals of our committees. The only committee that is continuing then has to keep going is the manifest, and that's a person from Jaffrey and a person from Ringe. Sandy has offered to continue the role of signing the manifest for Jaffrey. I am fine signing it for Ringe unless there's somebody else who would like to take that on. Hi, so manifest is all set. So there will be no policy meeting next week. Finance, everything will wait until we have an extremely busy meeting in 2 weeks. Let's sign this in public session. We're going to wait till it's full signature, public session, and getting them. Hey, Jaden, before you leave, thank you for being witness.
Okay. I think the answer is.
Nice job, buddy.
They decided not to put that back and not to put that one back. So they want to keep the French teacher.
I don't mind.